Sam, and I'm doing this full moon in Leo video. It's been a pretty intense few weeks with those planets in Pisces coming together, Venus and Mars and K2 coming together, especially this last weekend. We had Venus past K2 and then Mars is getting closer to K2. One of the things as we have this full moon is Mars and K2 will be very close. Mars will have just passed K2 in the sky. So of course that can really show some explosive potential that you've been experiencing the last few days. You need to watch it here on Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday. So the full moon does happen on Thursday, March 5th, around 9:30. The absolute Purnima, the absolute full moon happens at about 20 degrees of Leo, Sidereal Leo. So that's in the nakshatra of Purva Falguni as well. So the full moon is a time to harmonize the energy with the sun placement. So the sun has been in Aquarius. So this is a full moon in Leo, which is opposite Aquarius. So the Aquarius lesson is being learned right now. Aquarius is the masculine nature of Saturn, which gives us the capacity to commit to something for a long time, mainly something external and something that's of benefit to all of humanity, like social causes and things that are bigger than just our individual personal glory. Of course, that's opposite the sign of Leo, which is the sign of our individual personal glory. So as I always stress when I do full moon forecasts, it's actually the full moon is actually providing contrast to where the sun is. So, and it's an emotional kind of feeling more so than the action, because the actions are coming through where the sun is. So it's really the actions of that Aquarius sun that is pushing the agenda right now. And it's the feeling of Leo, the feeling of, but I want to feel powerful, but I need to feel individually strong while I'm of service or while I'm focusing on something larger than myself. Some people, what they focus on that's larger than themselves is maybe their relationship. But again, that tends to bog down after a while because your relationship is not the pinnacle of who you are going to be. That's actually more related to the Libra lesson, and Aquarius is actually a sort of up level from that, which is more about the relationship you have with all of culture, with all of the world, and with things beyond just this lifetime, things that are beyond just your personal happiness. So again, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn gives us that desire and capacity to commit to something that's bigger than ourselves, and to commit to it for a long time. After we resolve our inner fears and conflicts in Capricorn, which is the feminine ruled sign by Saturn, then we can focus, after we resolve our inner fears, basically our fear of death, then we can take and focus on something that's bigger than just our life, something that's going to outlive us. And that's the real Aquarius lesson. So Leo comes in contrast to that larger Aquarius lesson, and the full moon in Leo says, but I need to feel personally inspired, individually powerful as well. See, otherwise what happens is we're just kind of serving something that's so big that and we don't feel alive. We don't feel our heart's desire kind of kindled by it. This kind of thing happens a lot, for instance, that I've certainly noticed that this thing happens a lot in even things like spiritual ashrams, spiritual groups, especially people who are in a spiritual ashram and spiritual setting because they have not been able to live a happy life. They're kind of there sort of by default. There's a kind of Saturn, a kind of servitude feeling to it. And they're not like sort of turned on by life. I'm not saying all people. I'm saying you see this kind of thing in those situations because ashrams and places where people are serving has a lot to do with the Saturn principle. And so it needs to be harmonized with your heart's desire. And so once you really, in fact, align your heart's desire with something, what you wind up doing is serving. The sign that's opposite any other sign is really the sort of completion culminating point. So what I mean to say is we can't really show up in authentic service and authentic contribution, which is the Aquarius principle, unless and until our heart and our choice and identity is aligned with it. Otherwise, it just feels like servitude. We feel like a servant rather than being of service. So again, this is a big thing, and you see this with people who have Aquarius ascendant, or a lot of planets in Aquarius ascendant especially, because we're all an embodiment of that identity through the ascendant, is they'll tend to fixate and put too much attention on other people and sacrifice their own individual heart and their own individual connection. And finding that balance between service and individuality aligned with service, it needs to come from a place of choice, not from a place of fear. And again, it could be like that because Saturn is the planet of fear and it rules Aquarius. So again, I already talked about a few other things that are really important on this full moon. It's in Purva Falguni Nakshatra though as well. Purva Falguni is ruled by the god called Bhagha, who is the god of delight. Again, this is the part of Leo that maybe kind of insists on our own happiness and our own power rather than sharing. So given that this is a full moon in Leo, you want to share and you want to be aware of the need to share, and that true joy comes from sharing. But again, we may find a pretty strong backlash coming because Leo is a fiery sign and the moon is where we want to connect through the heart with people. So even on the build up to this full moon, we just had the moon go through Cancer and pass through Aslesha Nakshatra and retrograde Jupiter, and this was pretty difficult on Monday, and then on Tuesday it goes into Leo. It starts going through Leo, and then Wednesday it's going to be in Leo in Magha Nakshatra, and then going into Purva Falguni. So again, Leo is a sign where we kind of insist on being respected. It's like the sign of royalty, and you get on your knees before the king or before the queen. So be careful of that disrupting your true sense of contribution and polarizing the issues way too much. This is the thing that happens with full moons, is things get polarized. Around new moons and full moons, these lunation cycles, things get polarized. So something that may have started or had a genesis a couple weeks ago on the new moon in Aquarius might be reaching a point of conflict and potential resolution on the full moon to help you integrate whatever that lesson is. So this has to do with wherever Aquarius falls in your natal chart. Like if it's a Taurus person, it could be a career thing. There could be a very powerful career thing that was triggered on the new moon a couple weeks ago, the new moon in Aquarius, and it might be reaching a culmination point this week with something internal and emotional that's helping you stay steadfast to handle the pressure of the new opportunity or whatever it is. This is how these lunation cycles work. They're very important. This is why I publish these bi-monthly, and people who are members at my site, they also get to hear about this for their signs. And this is why people stay members at my site for years, because they stay in tune with these lunation cycles. So everyone who's been a member of my site, you got the new moon in Aquarius video a couple weeks ago. Now you're going to get the full moon in Leo to show you the harmonizing point. So again, if you're interested in that and you're not a member, it's only 1 penny for 2 weeks of forecast, and you also get to see how this full moon is going to affect your sign, this full moon in Leo. As I said, I already talked about the K2 Mars Venus in Pisces, which has really been pretty challenging for relationships. It could show some real kind of, again, sort of polarizing around issues and kind of flashpoints and not feeling appreciated and respected, and also some, falls from grace and some disappointments where you had these big expectations and then you realize, oh, I have to deal with this thing or whatever it is. All that, it could definitely be the last couple weeks or so as Venus, Mars, K2 has been, sort of crunching together. And we also just had the exact Mercury-Jupiter opposition, which brings together that opposition that I've been discussing. Mercury is the quality of intelligence and discrimination, in contrast to Jupiter, which is our hopes and beliefs. So those things have been, in play with each other the last, couple weeks, or the last few months, as Mercury has gone retrograde and then direct. So the other thing is that Saturn is aspecting this full moon, because Saturn aspects Leo. So we'll also feel that pressure of Saturn right now as it aspects the moon going through Leo. All these things are really important now. It's some pretty heavy times, for sure, especially with that pileup in Pisces with Mars, K2, and Venus on your relationships. And these things tend to also reach a culminating point around full moons because this opposition. There's often a lot of relationship stuff that gets worked out around full moons. And the challenge, you're often challenged to stay engaged or cut and run or something, but there's usually something going on because of that opposition, the sun and moon in opposition. It's like man and woman in opposition. So your relationships, maybe you haven't noticed this, but they tend to go through, just like your life, they go through, beginning cycles and resolution cycles and midpoints in the cycle, and the full moon is the midpoint in the cycle of Aquarius. So anyway, hope you're doing well. And again, if you want to see how this is going to influence your sign, which you should really check it out, see how this full moon in Leo is going to influence your sign based on your Vedic rising sign, then only one penny and you can get that forecast, and then you'll also get 2 weeks of forecast delivered each day, and also a couple classes so you can see the details somewhere on this video. You can check that out. So anyway, have a good one.